Hi, everybody. This is Gaia from guidingstar-astrology.com, and I am the in-house Horary Astrologer here at Guiding Star. I am part of the team of astrologers along with Kesenya and Jonny, and I specifically work with Horary Astrology and Horary techniques, which can be applied to Horary charts, but also to event charts and consultation charts. Today, we are going to work with an event chart. The event chart specifically is the beginning of the trial of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, which is taking place right now in the US. We are waiting for the verdict of the jury. So we do have the commencement chart, and we can work with that. We had also the commencement chart for the trial that occurred in the UK. And interestingly enough, we do have the same rulers when it comes to Johnny Depp and the opponent. In that case, it was specifically the newspaper called The Sun. And so it was the main opponent in this case. That's the ex-wife. But in any case, the rules are, interestingly enough, but not surprisingly, the same. So in both charts, he's ruled by Mercury. But as more specifically, we are going to work with the chart of the trial that's taking place in the US, because that's the hot topic of the moment. And therefore, I believe that it's going to be more relevant because it's going to talk about the future rather than something that has already happened and unfolded in the past. So what's happening here is that we are using an event chart. The event chart is the chart we cast for the beginning of something. And here that's when, the accusation has been definitely crystallized. So event chart, again, are charts which we can use and interpret with the same techniques we use in Horary Astrology. So this will be done the same way that I would do it if you were to ask me about a legal matter that is troubling you. So we assume that Johnny Depp is our parent and Amber Heard is the opponent, right? And we put him as the querent because he's the one who has initiated the legal suit. Because on the ascendant, always we have the initiative, always the ascendant represents the beginning. Well, we do have him who has initiated, so it's an event chart, but when it comes to event charts, we put on the first house the one who has started the persecution, and the opponent goes to the seventh. So we've got Mercury ruling him. We've got ascendant in Gemini, and we've got Jupiter on the opposite side. We got descendant in Sagittarius. So first of all, we look at Mercury, then at Jupiter, then we'll look at the 10th house, because 10th house is both the judgment and the judge. And then we're going to see how the chart looks in its totality. So let's have a look at Mercury in this chart. Well, this chart, I can tell you that Mercury is in Taurus. So what does Mercury in Taurus have? Well, basically zero dignity. that's it. It's a peregrine Mercury. So he's a drifter. He is somehow a stranger in a strange land. The trial is taking place in Fairfax, Virginia, which is not the typical court you would expect. That's not New York. So that's one thing. A Mercury which is exceptionally fast. This is a Mercury which is running at 2 degrees 01 per day. It's incredibly fast. It's a Mercury which has really a lot of, it's in a hurry to get things done. And it's also Mercury which has been recently rejuvenated because the chart is cast for the 12th of April 2022 with the Sun in Aries and Mercury, which is already in Taurus. So the conjunction Sun-Mercury has already happened. And when this conjunction happened, Mercury got rejuvenated by the Sun. So we got him with a new vigor, a new strength, a new willingness to fight, a new, you know, he's refreshed. He has gone to have a shower, you know, recharge the batteries, and now he's ready to fight again. It's going fast. So this is actually something you may want to kind of consider, because even though it's a peregrine Mercury, it's very fast and it's waxing. So it's getting stronger in its visibility. It's getting brighter and brighter. So his visibility is increasing as well. But let's look at the house of this Mercury. So where is he? Well, it's in the 11th house. The 11th house is not so bad, not at all. So it's the house of freedom. It's the house of hopes and wishes. And the 11th house is also the house of friends. So it's very likely that he may have public support somehow. Support from his environment, from his social environment, because of the placement in the 11th house. So is this Mercury afflicted? Do we wonder, other than being peregrine, which gives it a -5. So it's not a joke, honestly. But on the other hand, we have a very fast Mercury. We have Mercury, we call it occidental, which is waxing, gaining light. So do we have any other afflictions to this? The moon is about to make a trine to Mercury. We got the moon at 29 Leo. So we got Mercury at 3 Taurus. So moon is approaching making a trine, which is a nice aspect. And when the trine is made, the moon is in Virgo, meaning that the moon receives, Mercury receives the moon in its own sign of rulership and exaltation. But also Mercury in Taurus. So moon receives Mercury in her exaltation. So it's a trine with mutual reception. It's a very strong trine. What do we have? Well, Mercury is also applying to Venus, making a sextile to Venus. Venus in Pisces and Mercury in Taurus, sextile. So again, it's a nice aspect. Venus receives Mercury in her domicile. So again, a very beneficial sextile. We don't have Mars afflicting Mercury because Mercury is actually separating from Mars, from sextile. Mercury and Jupiter are not in aspect, and Saturn and Mercury are not in aspect. So this Mercury, although again, it is peregrine, it's also very well placed accidentally, because it's in the 11th house, because it's fast, because it's waxing, because it's moving toward a mutually received trine with the moon and a received sextile from Venus. Honestly, it doesn't look that bad. But let's look at the opponent, that is Jupiter. So Jupiter is at 23 Pisces, exactly on Neptune. They are on the same degree, on the same minute as well. this tells us something important, because Jupiter in Pisces is in its own sign, it's in rulership. And it's also in the 10th house, which is a house of, it's an angular house. It's a house of power. The 10th house of power. But it's with Neptune, so there is a lot of confusion. There can be mistakes. Things are not clear when it comes to his opponent. So when it comes to Amber Heard, there's something which is quite unclear, I have to say, because really, Neptune so near, it's on it. It's like the fog, the idealization, the fairy tale, the whole fantasy, the whole script that has been building around her case has gotten to a peak point where it gets damaging because Neptune is on it. So Neptune blurs everything. Now, again, a very strong Jupiter, like I said, in its own sign in the 10th house. Jupiter rules also the judge, because the judge and the judgment are the 10th house. And we've got Venus on the cusp of the 10th. So the judgment is leaning toward fairness, I must say. It seems like a fair judgment. It seems like the judge is competent. It feels like it's a pretty solid case as well. I feel like when we look at the case, she's got a much more solid case than he has, because her Jupiter is much stronger. So her case is much more lawful. It's just more just, in a sense, in a legal sense, I might add. It is imbued with inner justice, right? Whereas he does not have this inner righteousness of law. She does. She has on her side a strong case. She has the law on her side. He does not. However, let's look at what happens with this Jupiter. So aspects and similar. So the moon does not touch Jupiter, and the sun doesn't touch Jupiter either. Mercury does not. Venus is in the 10th house, but not aspecting Jupiter. Mars does not aspect Jupiter. There is a semi-sextile between Jupiter and Saturn, but it's too weak on its own to be considered any sort of testimony. We got Uranus, which is not in aspect. We got Neptune in aspect, and we got Pluto as well. Jupiter is applying to Pluto, making a sextile. So what does this mean? I mean, we've got Mercury meeting a bunch of planets, and we've got Jupiter only with Neptune. So the medieval astrologers and Renaissance astrologers would say that this Jupiter is void of course. They would say that this Jupiter is not making any aspect because Neptune hadn't been discovered yet at that time in the Renaissance. So what would have happened was that Jupiter would have been considered void of course. So this should account for something, because it does mean that nothing much could happen to help her other than her solid case. So she has a solid case, but that's all she has, right? She has this inner sense of knowing that she has justice on her side, that she is lawful in a sense, because she's got the law on her side, but that's all she has. There aren't any further players or people, factors, situations, or circumstances who are coming up to help her. She has her own resources, and that's pretty much all about it. That's what it is, nothing more. So I think that's pretty much all I can say about her. So let's go back to him. Let's go back to Mercury for a second, because Mercury, we have said, makes aspects. Okay, so first that happens is the trine with the moon. So what's the moon? Well, the moon is the jury, but it's also the public opinion, the public attention. And this moon is coming from an opposition to Mars. We've got this opposition between Moon and Mars, which is taking place in the axis 10th house, 4th house, Mars in the 10th, Moon in the 4th. So honestly, when we have such an opposition, like the 10th is the public and Mars on the public, so there's a lot of displayed anger and cruelty, nastiness. And the public opinion wants someone to blame. The Moon Mars opposition, anger, dissatisfaction, but also some need, because Mars in Aquarius, so there might be a need to rebel, but also the need to find a scapegoat, to find someone to blame, the need to find someone who has to be guilty of something. The 10th house is, again, the judge and the judgment. And with Mars on the 10th, we got Venus as well, but Mars is closer to the angle. So a judgment that comes out of anger, a judgment that comes out of a need to finally identify someone as guilty, because Mars, so up there means publicly displayed anger and violence. Aquarius is a violent sign, so this again reinforcing the need for quote unquote blood to be spilled. So the need for someone to be, the need to cut someone's head off, right? So that's something that you have to take into account. There's a lot of public attention into this case, and it's gonna be playing a very important role into this. You will hear background noises because it's summer and people are doing all sorts of things outside in their backyard or front yard. Someone is cutting the grass, someone is planting, someone is watering the plants, someone else is doing all sorts of works outside. So you will hear background noises and the birds as well singing a little bit because there's a lot going on outside. So let's go back to our moon opposite Mars. So our moon opposite Mars is really the highlight that's telling us, there is the crowd. The crowd wants to see someone on the gallows, right? So there is a lot of pressure from the crowd to have someone who's guilty. So I was saying that the moon has just met with Mars through an opposition, and this means that we are bringing anger, right? So we've got a lot of anger, and this moon is carrying the light between Mars and Mercury, because Moon will meet Mercury. So Moon has got the energy of Mars, and she will translate or transmit this energy to Mercury. So, but it's a trine, so that anger probably will be turned into willingness to resolve the matter and to go through it. Moon comes from the 4th house. The 4th house is usually indicating the final outcome and the end of, especially the end of the matter. And it's ruled by Mercury, interestingly enough. And so this could indicate that the jury will be the end of the matter, will indicate that the jury will be the one who puts the final dot on this long book that has been written in those last years. But also because we have such a tension on this angle, it could indicate that the media repercussion on a societal level will be much, much higher than a usual case. That is for sure, because that's a public case. So let's see what else I may add. Well, the moon is also ruling the second house. So he may have to pay some compensation because his money meets him. So he may have to kind of, either pay some compensation, or maybe he will have witnesses on its side, because that's actually a trine. So I'm more inclined to say that he's got evidence on his side. I'm more inclined to see this positively. So he may even receive actually some money, because that's a nice aspect. So I would actually be more inclined to say that he has got either good evidences on its side, or some witness that can help him, or also, again, rather than him paying, I feel like this could be him being paid. So him receiving some money because of such a nice mutually received trine. After the Moon Mercury meeting, Mercury meets with Venus. Mercury applies to Venus in Pisces. So Mercury is in Taurus, the sign of Venus. So Venus receives Mercury in her rulership and also in her triplicity. Venus is very strong, so she's able to deliver, but deliver what? Well, she's a benefic coming from the 10th house. She's a benefic in good dignity, which rules, well, it rules the 12th house. So on paper, this doesn't look that good. But also rules the 5th house. So that's a little bit less ominous. But it's a very benefic planet, and for him, they meet through a benefic contact. So I'm more inclined to say that the judgment will be more in his favor, even though he does not appear to have a solid case. But, Mercury is receiving beautiful aspects. So harshness of the judgment could be something, but again, because it's in the past, Moon is moving on from Mars, I feel like it's anger that is coming up from what has already happened in the past. And I may also spot here with that Mars such high up above some losing patience and wanting to get done with it and bye-bye, because this has been dragging and dragging and dragging along for quite a time. And because the 4 angles are all in mutable signs, this indicates that this has been going and going from court to court, which is actually true, because first of all, it began in England, and then it went into court in the US. So they are going from court to court, they are dragging this thing, and it's like, with such a fast Mercury, my feeling is that, let's get done with it. We are tired. Patience is lost. And also that could be what Mars is also saying, that, Mars is not here to wait and see. Mars acts first and thinks later. So that could be something to consider as well. So I think that, that's pretty much my analysis here. That's how I would counsel the client. So let's assume that Johnny Depp is my client, and he comes to me with the date of the beginning of the trial. And what I would tell him is that, listen, you've got a pretty poor case because you're not well placed. So your case is it's quite weak. You do not stand on solid ground. But, and also, I may say that, the law is not on your side that much. And I would say that the opponent has a very strong case, very lawful. The law is on her side. However, even though in both cases the circumstances are good because Mercury is fast and Jupiter is fast as well. Mercury is occidental, which means that it's waxing, and Jupiter is oriental, which means that it's waxing as well. So both are in a good position. The malefics, which are Mars and Saturn. So the malefics are not afflicting the two significators. So we start with somehow of an equal footing. However, when we go to see what's going to happen, we see that Mercury is doing a lot of things, whereas Jupiter is stuck and doesn't have many opportunities to do something brilliant. Therefore, I would advise my parent to put trust into the people and into Venus, because those planets will be very helpful. They meet with Mercury in nice received aspects. So whether it is evidence on his side, whether it is the whether it is the judgment, which is on his side, those are nice things that, he's making nice aspect to a benefic in the 10th. So, at first glance, it looks negative for him, but at the same time, there are many factors that turn the situation upside down. Feels like the worst was in the past because the moon met Saturn first with an opposition, then Mars. It feels like Mars is in the 10th house, but still, it feels like all the negative has happened in the past. So, this is quite, in spite of him being pretty weak, this is actually not looking so bad for him. I might say. In the previous chart, the chart of the beginning of the trial in London, he was combust, retrograde. Really, it looked worse. Still was Mercury, but in a far, far, far worse dignity, I have to say. So again, if he were my parent, I would say that there is hope and that he can find support from evidence because the moon rules the second house. You can also find support from the fourth house because that's where the moon is. So I would say you can find support from your family as well, or the fifth house. So I honestly have no idea whether he has children, but if yes, they actually would be very supportive because Venus rules the fifth house and it's a benefic. So yeah, honestly, I would leave my parent with a bunch of hopes running. I wouldn't say, stellar high, but pretty solid nonetheless. So that's my report for this chart. And at this point of the consultation is where we wish the parent good luck. And we ask the parent to give us a feedback once the matter has been resolved. But of course, there will be the newspaper that will give us the feedback, right? So we just have to wait for the jury to decide and to see what the newspaper say. And I feel like in what's that yeah, they have been thinking and thinking for quite a little bit of time now. So that, it should be near. I would say that they will, because the planets are quite fast. So I think it's gonna happen pretty soon. All right. So if you want to be my parent, like Johnny Depp, you can find me on guidingstarastrology.com below the astrologers page. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.